Hello out there, it's David Duford at davidduford.com. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I decided to do a live stream based off of a question that I have from a newer agent that's in my agency who listened to a sales training I did the other day where we talked to basically analyze one of my sales calls and in the attempt to try to figure out why I didn't sell this particular person a policy. And the conversation came up about need, desire, and urgency. And I think it's really important to understand that if you're going to go out there and try to be successful in the final expense business, insurance business, what have you, you've got to know how to build. You have to know how to uncover the need that a prospect has and be able to coherently explain it to them in simple terms. And then you also have to make sure that you know how to build urgency to have the client buy today, if at all possible. It's not enough just to logically get them to believe that they need insurance. They've got to have an emotional desire to do it now. If they don't do it now and they're not into it, then you're likely to run into problems to where they are non-committal and don't buy. So how do we do this? I think the best way to do this is not by applying external pressure. It's by applying internal tension. And the way I would describe doing that, in other words, is to ask the right kind of questions very early on in your sales call. Repetitively, I talk about training and agents and how pre-qualifying and fact-finding is the most pivotal point of your sales presentation. It allows you to determine if your prospect is qualified to buy or not. And you learn how they think and what they think about so that you can really match what matters to them to how your product solves that problem for them. So how do you start off by figuring out what the need is for the client? So I think the best question that every single one of you should be asking, not just for final expense, but for any product, is when you have the lead, it doesn't matter if it's a lead card, a Facebook lead, telemarketing, whatever you're using, the script you should say very early on in the sales call is this. My question to you, Mrs. Jones, getting started here is, what were your thoughts and concerns when you decided to send back this card? Then shut up and listen. Now, why do I like that? Well, because it tells us logic and emotion, thoughts and concerns. Thoughts are probably logical. They may not be, though. Concerns are definitely emotional, though. And what this is going to tell you is, why did somebody do what they did? You should be sincerely curious why somebody who's received these cards day in and day out for years now decided to send one of these back. It's kind of interesting, right? Because we know they get a lot of these cards and solicitations, not just from agents like us, but from other agents, from Colonial Penn, AARP, everybody. It's pretty remarkable that they would bother to send this back, knowing they're probably going to get called on. So you want to ask that question with sincerity and let them answer in full. What you will find when you ask this question is that you will uncover, in many cases, a very good idea of how the client is qualified, what they're looking for, what matters to them, and you really get inside of the client's head, where you want to be, on what makes them tick and what matters the most for them. And this builds the need. How does it do it? Because the best and most convincing argument you can make is the one that you tell yourself. You are the most convincing person out there. If you hear yourself saying, I'm not getting any younger, I don't have any coverage, I love my kids and I don't want to leave them in a bind, then this is something that you're going to believe more of because you have drawn that conclusion yourself. I haven't forced their hand, right, as the agent. They have come up with this concept of, yeah, I'm not going to be here forever and I need to take care of things. That builds urgency. And it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like they were made to say that. They volunteered it. And because they said it and they believe it. And that's powerful. That's very powerful. So this one question really encapsulates a lot of what we're looking to accomplish, which is identifying what makes these prospects do what they do. So once we do that, you may get, a lot of times, most times you'll get a positive response. A lot of times you won't. You'll get somebody who may be a little more suspicious, say, well, I was kind of curious. What is this about? What you want to do to that is follow up with the 3-question routine. I learned this from John Duggar, very successful final expense agent. It sounds like this, and it allows you to identify one of 3 routes to go in, and it forces the client to choose a route. And the only reason we do that is because they're not being forthright. They're not engaging in reciprocity and answering the question with detail. So sometimes we have to lead them along. So the script sounds like this. Well, okay, so you're just looking to see what this is about. I can get that. So what I found, Mrs. Jones, is that there's 3 main reasons why somebody sends this card back. The first reason is that they don't have any coverage. If they die, it is on them. And they do not want their family paying for this. They feel that it's their job to take care of affairs. The second situation is that they have some coverage, but they don't have enough. Prices have gone up, or perhaps in other ways, you're paying for too much for your money and you're trying to get a better deal or get more for your money. And then the third situation is you've got plenty of coverage and just want to leave a legacy to a child or grandchild. My question to you is, out of these 3 options, having no coverage and knowing you need it, number 2, knowing you need more coverage on top of what you have or wanting to get a better deal, or number 3, just leave money behind, which fits you the best? What will happen in many cases is a client will choose one or the other. And then from there, you can line up the appropriate questions to start fact-finding and uncovering what the opportunity is. So for example, let's say somebody says, I don't have any coverage. I would ask them, so what happens tomorrow if you pass away without coverage? What happens next? And just let them detail it out. Let them visually walk through what it's like to die and the consequences that it causes the loved ones they have. Ask questions about, are you wanting to be buried or cremated? Have you made any other kind of plans or arrangements? Really just push home the fact that they haven't done anything and there's consequences to it. If they answer that they've currently got coverage or interested in possibly a better deal, start fact finding to figure out what policy they have, the type of policy, the amount of coverage, the premium. Ask for the policy to do a review of it. And you may uncover a need there that they didn't know. Maybe they have a 2-year waiting period with Colonial Penn when they should have had, or they're qualified for first day full coverage. So they didn't know that coming in, but you uncovered it and improved it by replacing it. So follow the line of questioning in that way too. If it's number 3, I don't really know what to do with number 3. I mean, just build up the fact of why legacy is important. I say that because I really don't run into a lot of that, to be honest with you. It's usually points 1 or 2. Legacy is like kind of a throwaway. It doesn't really happen all that much. So that's how we start to establish need. And it's important we do this early on in the sales call because that's when it matters the most. You have to determine if the time you spend with the prospect is worth your time. Even if you don't have a lot of leads, even if you're just getting started, you don't want to spend an undue amount of time with someone who has a low odds of buying. It's going to frustrate you long term, and you're still not going to make the sale the vast majority of the times, even though you press on and ignore the fact that they have said no in some way to you. Need and want are the most important aspects of this. And that question of whether they're qualified for the desire and the necessity for it is really answered in how they respond to these series of questions. Of course, we ask about health, bank account, and budget. We'll save that for another training. We want to get that out of the way too. But the need and want are absolutely necessary. What was funny, we were listening to the sales call I did on Monday. I did this years ago. And I noted early on in sales call that I didn't ask a lot of these questions. I didn't ask a lot of the open-ended, emotional-based questions. It was very surface-oriented. She wasn't really receptive in giving me information, but I wasn't doing a good job digging deeper, really scratching at the wound, if you will. And I didn't get the sale because of it. She's very dismissive, very non-vested into it, the whole thing. So that was, again, this is what happens when you don't do an emotional type of needs analysis. So the last thing I want to talk about before I let you guys go is the importance of building urgency. Now, this is something, first of all, you need to accept with this business, and it's this. This is a one-call close business. If you're selling any kind of insurance product that is not annuities, you got to learn how to close today. And the key difference in learning how to close the right way is you want to close and build that internal tension I mentioned earlier in the clients versus applying guilt or pressure on the client because of your needs, okay? So the mindset you have to go into building urgency to buy today has to be on really believing that your product that you have, it has to be taken out today. You at least have to apply for it today because of some fundamental realities of life. And let me tell you what they are. If you're selling final expense agents or clients, this will make most sense. We're not getting any younger. Our health is not promised tomorrow. And if you agree to that, then there is absolutely no reason you need to hesitate to buy. You guys have had experience, probably have run into prospects that, well, I need to think about this and pray to my pet rock and all that stuff. And they end up having a heart issue or something happens and it dramatically changes their ability to actually qualify for the coverage. And that's a shame. And the first thing you should think of if you do this is, I didn't do a good enough job to help my clients. What can I do better to make them see the rawness of their situation if they need it and they express interest but cannot fully commit because they got kind of like a buyer's remorse type of thing. In other words, you got to have the client picture the hearse backed up against the front porch. There's a way to do this without being high pressure. And it's about talking about normal things that we all agree with. Again, what do I do? So if I have somebody says, I need to think about it, I'll ask them, well, okay, that's fine. Well, how do you mean when you say you need to think about it? Well, I don't know. I need to give this some thought if this is something I really want to do. Well, if I followed my presentation right, then I've already pre-qualified them. I know they need it and they want it. So I'm going to go back and revisit that and say, hey, look, here's the deal. You need to think about this, that's fine. But look at this. This is the bottom line. You're telling me if you died today, you don't have a dime of coverage, okay? And I'm not trying to be high pressure. And I speak to people like this, frankly. I'm not trying to be high pressure here. But this is the day to get coverage. Because if you were my mom and you died on me, look, I don't know what condition your kids are in, but most people can't drop 10 grand on a funeral all of a sudden. You're going to really leave them in a bad spot. You have great health right now. Your health is good enough to qualify for this today. I'm pretty sure. Don't know for sure, but it's worth a shot. You don't have to pay today, but why don't we just go ahead and get you approved for some kind of product and then bingo. At least you've got something on the books because something is better than nothing. So I use the something or better than nothing script a lot of the times when somebody may not be able to get as much coverage as they could have gotten, maybe because their health is different, or maybe they wanted 10 grand, but they can only afford 5,000 based on their premium. So I encourage them to buy even if it's a partial plan because I know that will go a heck of a long way versus having nothing. Paying the premium is how you solve the problem for insurance issues, right? Not paying the premium continues the problem. And again, I'll tell them that. You solve the problem by buying the policy. If you don't, you're just playing games in your own mind that this stuff actually is, not buying it is prolonging the problem. And it really is. So it's really important to build that urgency, not just at the end when you're rebuttaling like in my example, but all throughout the presentation. You need to be enthusiastic about how you can help somebody change your lives today, and really the survivors of the insured. You've got to be enthusiastic about building the need. Tell stories of other people who had coverage and the benefit that it provided. And when you explain the difference between term life and whole life, have examples of stories of real life people that had term, that outlived it, and the consequences from it. Or who had a 2-year wait and thought they'd be okay and then stroked out all of a sudden and they're here today, gone tomorrow. These build a ton of urgency. Parables, right? It's in the Bible, kind of probably work for us too. So I definitely encourage that throughout. So need and urgency. Work on this, guys. If you work on this, I promise you, you will sell more policies than you are now. Good agents are really good at tapping into this stuff. They know what questions to ask. They know how to ask the questions. They know how to get the client to just earnestly admit that they have a problem and they need help, of which you are the guy to provide it. Hope you enjoyed this live training. If you're interested, I was going to go promote my book to you, so I'm going to turn this thing over here a little bit. I can't even tell on my camera. I got a green book over there. It's brand new. It's called The Official Guide to Selling Final Expense Insurance. Yeah, you kind of see it out the corner there, I see now. If you're brand new to the insurance business, I highly recommend that you pick this book up. It is a really good roadmap for the new agent who maybe has gotten into this business because of a referral. They don't really know what it's about, and they want some guidance on what markets are good, what products are good to sell, and really kind of a 30,000 foot overview of how the business is and what it takes to be successful. It's not something that would be really for experienced agents, though you could buy it for sure and probably get some value out of it. But for the new agents that just don't know anything, trust me, if you're new, you don't know anything, this book will help you tremendously. You can buy it on Amazon. I made it extremely cheap. It's $9.99 for the paperback, and then it's like $2.99 for the Kindle. The goal of this book is just to provide a ton of information that just isn't readily available, unfortunately, and hopefully provide some education to the masses of new agents in the field. So please pick it up. It's at Amazon. David Duford here at davidduford.com. Hope you enjoyed this live stream. We'll see you next time.